Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening to our podcast. Tiffany and I give our all with curating information, researching platforms, and creating a show with the best up to date information we can. We have a vested interest in the growth and health of your business and hope you feel the same way about us. We've joined Patreon. Become a patron for as little as $5 a month, and you'll gain access to our community, exclusive behind the scenes, speaker access, publicity for your business, webinar discount opportunities, and more. Please support us so that we can continue supporting you. How are you?
Excellent.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. It was good. I did no work, which is a first.
Mm.
I completely lost my desire to work, but it may have something to do with my surroundings. I happen to be at the beach. So this is a little tough. And the internet at the Airbnb we were at wasn't very good, which is fine because it's probably by design.
Mm-hmm.
And the entire city of Bethany didn't seem to really want to recognize Verizon. So my phone service didn't work that well either. So I couldn't even hotspot it. So it worked out. It was a conspiracy by the universe to make sure that I shut off for the weekend, which we ended up doing. How about you?
Yeah, so I was supposed to be off all week last week, and my last day was supposed to be Monday, which means my last day was actually Friday.
I like the supposed to be.
Yeah. Had family come in, had graduation parties coming out of my ears, and thankfully I am done with the graduation parties. I still have one more graduation to go before my youngest and I are it. And my husband, obviously, I keep forgetting about him.
Oh, there's that guy.
That guy. There's a guy that lives with me, and for the next 7 years, it'll just be us, just us. So
that'd be great.
It'll be interesting to see what that's going to look like. So, will my business falter, or will I finally be doing a lot more with my business? I don't know. I feel like we need to talk about that at some point of how you grow your business when you've got like a gaggle of children at home.
Yeah, that'll be something that you would know better of.
I would.
Yes. I don't know. I find it very admirable that anybody can squeeze out time with a gaggle of children at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes you have to keep yourself from going crazy.
So are you saying that having a business actually keeps you sane from being around kids?
Yes. And having a business and children at the same time tells me that someone may take over my company someday for me. Like, that is a dream. And that is what we're going to be talking about today.
Exiting.
Yes.
Exiting.
And now the end is here.
The end is here.
And so you face that final curtain.
Oh my gosh.
My friend, I'll make it clear. You'll state your case, of which I'm certain. You've lived a life that's full. You traveled each and every highway. And more, much more, you did it. You did it your way. So, yeah, I like that.
That was lovely, Dr.
Switched
Seuss.
up Frank Sinatra a little bit.
Okay.
It's not Dr. Seuss, that's Frank Sinatra.
I don't know what that
You were
was.
Close. You were close.
I don't know what that was. Okay. So, but it was lovely. It was lovely.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. I'm here all night. So now what? What do you do? Do you lay down and just wait for the end of days? Do you start collecting cats and 1,000-piece puzzles?
Oh.
Do you lock the door of your house, never leaving again, hoping someone finds you eventually under a pile of Big Mac boxes? Of course not. Just because you've sold your company doesn't mean you have to go to the farm, so to speak. We're here to talk about what happens after you ride off into the sunset, the after sale of your business, how to prepare for it before you sell, and what to do after. Before we begin, please note our disclaimer. This is available in both our show notes and on our website and should be referred to before and or after this podcast.
Let's talk about the post-exit feel.
Yes.
Now, first of all, a lot of people exit their business and they're happy as can be. I haven't met too many of those people, but that's cool. They're out there somewhere, I hear. But even though a lot of people are happy with the exit, meaning that they love the fact that they actually exited their business, whether or not they sold it, whether or not they handed off their kids, yay. There's still a lot of struggles with the post-exit life that I think is very surprising to most people. And honestly, one of those things that aren't talked about very much, because I guess it's one of those things that if you knew the truth, you may never do it.
Yeah.
Much like having kids.
Yeah. And getting married.
There's that too.
Everybody tells you how to prepare for the wedding, but no one tells you how to prepare for marriage. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about what it could look like after the sale, and what after the sale, after the exit, and what some of these feelings could be, right? So again, the more aware you are, the more you know, the better you could try to prepare yourself. But it is one of those things, again, speaking from personal experience, is that if you don't living it is a very different experience than hearing about it or preparing for it.
Yes.
You kind of don't know how you're going to react until you get into the situation. But I kind of wish I did a little bit more research to this, because, high in my ego, I thought I knew what I was doing. No. So I was kind of, smacked over the head with a couple of these things too. So there's a list of 6, what I call post-exit feels that I feel like we'll share with everybody here, just so you're aware of them. So the first one is seller's remorse, or exit remorse, I suppose. Exit remorse. So basically, you left too early. You feel like you left too early. That's usually one of the most common regrets somebody feels after they exit their business, is that they left before the business reached its full potential, or could have reached its full potential under your leadership. Mm-hmm. So that's a little hard one to deal with, because, first of all, hindsight's 2020. So I'm sure everybody probably feels that way. Once you leave, you look back and you're like, well, I could have done more. I could have done that. Or maybe there's a little envy about how well it's doing after you exit.
Well, so what would a situation be, or what example could you give of a situation like that? Like, would it be you made a decision to give your business to your child after they graduated from business school? Now they've graduated from business school, but you're still not ready. Is that an example of a situation in which?
I was thinking more of like, you maybe handed the business off to your kids or to your employees, right? Or you sold it. Now you're like, oh, or you're watching what's happening after you leave, right? Maybe things are getting better. Again, ego has a little bit of a play into this, but maybe like things are just doing better without you there, which, makes you kind of reflect on your own ability to lead the business while you were at the head of it, right? So, or it's just the fact that maybe it's not doing as well as you hoped that it would be after you exit. And that's the part that you kind of regret a little bit. Like, oh, should I just have stayed on a little bit longer and made this thing bigger and better? All right. So the other post-exit feels that a lot of people get, and a lot of people get this, is simply just depression.
Yeah.
After you exit. Yeah. Because you have such a strong attachment to the business. You have such a strong attachment to your identity as the business owner, especially if you built it from scratch. So all of a sudden, after you exit, you may feel a sense of loss that's really hard to actually grapple with. And I think this one hits a lot of people by surprise. The third thing is loss of control. As you would imagine, it must be nice to be the captain of your own ship, and then all of a sudden you're not the captain of your own ship. So
you're waving goodbye.
You're ship. Like, see you later. You're going off on a little tugboat, and the ship is going on without you. And man, not much of a crew that you have to actually control or preside over anymore. So that is also something, especially if you're super active in your business and even if you have a great business that operates really well on its own, you're probably used to being this, like, the last decision maker, right? The one that makes the final decision that actually makes it go or not. And all of a sudden, when that's taken away from you, you're like, oh, okay. What am I going to decide? Am I going to do the dishes today? Am I going to do the laundry today, right? Not that exciting.
Right. I would say it's probably as similar to retirement, taking retirement earlier than you, or it would, to me, be a lot like retirement, because you are essentially retiring from your company.
Yes, you are. Yes. And I guess I didn't use the word retirement because a lot of people associate retirement with like seniority, right? Like a senior age. But a lot of people who do exit their business, if they exit well, technically they could be retired, right? Financially, they could be retired. So, and they could be well into their 20s, 30s, or even 40s, 50s. So, but yes, even retirement is very much the same as that. All right. The other feels that you may get is the coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yes.
What if you like the feeling that you left money on the table? That one is pretty hard, because a lot of times, even if your business gives you a substantial windfall when you have sold it or somehow transitioned it, most owners do sometimes feel they can negotiate a better deal or they undervalue their business during the sales process. And from what I was seeing online, a lot of people feel this way. And so this seems to be just a very common, again, that hindsight is 2020. When you're in a negotiation, you're doing all this, you may not think of it. And then post the exit, you look at it and you go, oh man, why did I do that? I could have asked for more money here, there, and there. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that that's probably the case in anything that you sell sometimes. When you sell something big and you went through a negotiation with somebody, maybe it's your house, a car, or, something that you put on Marketplace or something, and you wonder, man, if they took that, I could have asked for more. They probably would have said yes.
Yeah. And the thing is with this is like, it's not like everybody goes through a lot of you don't get a lot of experience exiting your business normally. It's not like, unless you're like one of those people who acquire a lot or something like that. Most people go through maybe 3 exits at the most in their lifetime.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly this is something you have a lot of practice with.
Yeah.
So would it be surprising that after the fact you look back and you're like, oh, I could have done better?
And it's not the same as flipping a company, and it's not the same as entrepreneurship in its broader sense.
No.
This is a company that you've built with your blood, sweat, and tears, if you will, and you've been in it for a minute, and you're now bequeathing it, if you will, to
well, that's a good point. So I think a lot of what we're saying is really much geared toward founders, people who have actually started their business from scratch. So it's a very different attitude when you do that. And so, again, that probably lends itself to a lot of these really post-exit feelings that just aren't great. All right. The 5th type of post-exit feels you may have is the loss of relationships, right? You get used to the business and the company that you're around, especially your employees, your management team, even your customers and vendors. And sometimes without a reason to have this relationship, meaning your business and you being the head of the business, sometimes these relationships kind of just fall apart, and that's really hard to deal with. The other thing is, the last thing actually is the lack of purpose or the loss of identity, right? So we kind of touched on that a little bit about exiting too early or just like the feeling depression, but having a purposeless kind of feeling is something that, again, even people who have left companies with a major exit dollars, we're talking about millions and billions, often kind of spend a lot of time kind of grappling with the fact that they have no purpose anymore. They don't have a reason to wake up in the morning and go, 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 go. They wake up in the morning and they go, okay, there's nothing to do.
Yeah, and you may try to do something like maybe call up the CPA that used to be yours, but now is went with the company, or maybe the other financial people that stayed with the company. You're like, hey, how you doing? So, how are the books looking?
He's like, what books? You have no books.
You have no books to look at. So no peeking.
Yeah, I think just having something to do, right? Because especially if you go through, especially if you're in business for a really long time, having every day waking up, having something to build, and then all of a sudden not having that anymore, that's a bit of a shock for most people. And I think, yes, maybe you have your honeymoon period for about a week or 2, and you're like, okay, well, I'm tired of watching Netflix. I'm tired of reading books. I'm tired of maybe golfing. I don't know what your deal is, right? But at some point, all that kind of goes away, and you're like, well, what am I going to do with my life now? Especially if you exited somewhat early.
Young.
Okay. I didn't want to say the age thing, but yeah.
Yeah, but young. I mean, if you exited young, most of it, I feel like if you exit at an older age, maybe in your late 50s or early 60s, a lot of your friends are retiring as well. And so likely you may have a little bit more
company.
More company and maybe more activities and things to do, because there are a lot of activities that are geared towards the older generation. But if you're exiting in your late 20s, early 30s, all your friends are still building their families. Everybody's still working. And you're over here like, I don't know that I want to play shuffleboard with a bunch of 70-year-olds. What do I do now?
Or you have enough money to go buy a yacht or something. Guess what? Nobody has time to hang out with you because they're busy with life.
You're yachting alone.
Yes. Sad. You don't want to yacht alone. No. But even if you are older, especially I can imagine somebody who's had their business for 20, 30 years, or they've been in the business world for 40 some years, right? You're exiting around, say, your 60s to 70s. First of all, you still have a lot of good years ahead of you. Course. And imagine having a life where you have this routine where you're up and at 'em all the time, and you kind of have, you're a go-getter, and you have a reason to do something every single day, right? All of a sudden just to not have that. I just would be sad.
You are no longer go-getting.
Yeah, there's nothing to go get. You got it already. So now you just need to calm down. And that's hard. I think that's a really hard, life to adapt to. So we're saying this all to say that you should be prepared.
Agreed.
Right. So exiting is a good thing. You should exit at some point, and when's the right time to exit, but you just want to be really, really, really prepared so you don't accidentally fall into one of these post-exit feels that is a little hard to get out of and not great to live through.
And I'm going to talk about preparation.
Yes.
I can't say I know what it's like to sell a business, but I do know enough people who have sold their businesses or passed their businesses down to their children. And it is a really difficult and delicate departure for the old guard when giving up the reins to the new. It's not something that can be done over the course of a week. In reality, it's something you should start preparing for a few years prior to the exchange. If you will, it's almost like retiring, as I mentioned. And frankly, I suggest you look at it as a retirement plan. No one says you have to consider this the end of your working career, but you should start shifting your mindset to this being the end of working in this field or in this industry. So there are a few points you should consider to help you prepare. For example, taking time to reflect. Selling a company, as Tiffany mentioned, is an emotional experience. Reflect on your accomplishments, the challenges you faced, and the lessons you've learned along the way. I mean, hey, give yourself a pat on the back. You've managed to not only own a company, but be successful enough that it can continue to live on in someone else's hands. Maybe you've owned this business now for 10, 20, 30, 40 years. That is huge, especially when you consider most businesses fail or close shop in the 5 to 7 year period.
Yeah.
So consider how to shape your future. How do you want it to be shaped? And what brings you fulfillment? Start to identify passions and interests, or maybe start bringing those passions and interests to the forefront. Think about activities, causes, or industries that ignite your passion. This could involve starting a new venture, pursuing a different career, dedicating yourself to hobbies, maybe traveling, philanthropy, whatever it may be. Start writing it out or imagining it, carving it out, putting some parameters around it. It's also time to start separating yourself emotionally from the company. And I'm saying this because this isn't your baby anymore. And I, as a business owner, and maybe at some point you did too.
Oh, I did.
Consider this like like your baby, your business baby. This business brought you a lot of love and it brought you a lot of heartache. But in the end, it's a business that is meant to be someone else's.
Yeah, get ready to give the baby away.
Right. Just like your child. Your child will someday
grow up
and move out and have no problem telling you how they feel and be honest with you. They'll still ask you to pay for their cell phone, but that's neither here nor there. Separating yourself from the business will help you let go of the responsibilities and let someone else start making changes. You have to be okay with them. Next, you have to define your role in the transition. And by the way, this is different than what Tiffany was saying. She's talking about after the sale. I'm talking about before the sale. You have to start preparing yourself.
Yes.
Prepare yourself.
Do not wait until after the exit to prepare.
No.
Like if you're preparing financially, operationally for the sale, you should prepare emotionally as well. Or the exit. Not always a sale, an exit.
Right. So next, define your role in the transition. Determine the level of involvement you wish to obtain and maintain in the company after the sale. Consider whether you want to stay on as an advisor. Maybe they want you to stay on as an advisor. Maybe they want you to stay on as a board member, or you want to stay on as a board member, or maybe you want to completely sever ties. If this company is going to a family member, you may want to consider bringing them on board now if they're not already a part of the business 5 years before you plan to exit, so that they can gain more in the weeds knowledge about what makes your company tick and decide how they can change or improve these things for the future benefit of the company, and figure out internally how to be okay with these changes. Maybe start presenting these changes from that point, so that your longtime employees or even longtime clientele, customers, or whatever it is, your brand, doesn't change overnight because the guard has changed. The people who own it now have changed. It's a good idea to represent it in a more gradual manner and make the
Sure.
changes on a gradual manner, and it'll help you with moving on from it as well. At this point, I think it's time you start writing down what your succession plan will be. You put the timelines down as goals and stages and keep on track as best you can. This will help your stakeholders, employees, and whomever else that may have interest in your company better understand what that transition is going to look like. So, this is outside of your employees and your clientele and branding and image and all that. This is the internal people. If you have stakeholders, if you have board members, your C suite people, they need to be on the same page and know that that's not a page you're on anymore. Your name is off the page. Identify who those potential successors may be, what kind of training they may have, what roles you want them to have in the many stages until you are gone. And establish clear communication channels. Make sure that all of you throughout this period are on the same page. Part of your succession is the money you walk away with. You'll want to assess the amount of money you will receive from the sale and consult with financial advisors to understand the implications and potential tax liabilities. I think both of us would be remiss if we did not mention accounting.
Oh, yeah, there's that.
Yeah, there's that. Be prepared for this by starting to put estimated tax payment amounts away in a separate bank account that you're not going to touch so that you're not blindsided at the end of the sale.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, if as opposed to it being a sale, like maybe it's giving your company over to your children and there's, say, I don't know, $5 million in the bank, and you think that it'll be about $2.5 million for you to walk away. You both agree to it. You got to find out what the taxes are going to look like on $2.5 million. I know, you know what I'm saying? So you're going to want to talk to somebody about it.
That's a good point. Sell or not, though. But going back to your point about like preparing your stakeholders. So if you're going to sell, it might be a little hard to prepare your stakeholders because typically you don't tell anybody you're going to sell.
True.
Yeah. So, but there are ways for you to still prepare, right? Because as an owner, you kind of want to extract yourself from all the processes, the main processes and the operations of the business, which is just good business to have to begin with. So you can always do it kind of for that purpose, to be able to extract yourself from the business little by little without kind of raising any kind of like curiosities as to what your ultimate goal is.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to want to create a comprehensive financial plan. Determine how you'll allocate the proceeds from the sale. Consider your long-term financial goals, such as investment strategies, retirement plans, potential philanthropic endeavors, how you're planning on, maybe you used to give yourself an X salary and you've lived your life at that level and you want to continue being able to live at that level. You want to be able to create a situation for yourself financially so that you can with your financial advisor. Put some money aside for fun things like travel or a long vacation. Maybe even start another business if you want. Whatever it may be, you want to have a plan for that money. In my mind, if you don't, this is where you start to feel overwhelmed, possibly depressed, because there's no guideline in the after sale.
And it's hard when you just start the planning after the exit. Like it's already a little too late, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yes. In saying this, make sure you diversify your investments and avoid putting all of your funds in a single investment. Diversify your portfolio to minimize risk and ensure financial stability. But I kind of feel like that goes without saying. I imagine if you made it this far, you already know that.
And if you have a financial advisor, I'm sure
one would
told you that plenty of times.
So I know this may be your child or children, or maybe this is a key person in your company. But in any case, you may want to consider creating a non-compete agreement. Evaluate whether you are subject to any non-compete clauses, which may restrict your ability to start a competing business or work in a similar field. Seek legal advice if necessary. So the reason why I say this is if you love what you do, but you want to do it on a smaller scale, maybe not at the large operational level at which you used to be in. I'm going to say, what if you owned a chain of supermarkets? You sell or you give your chain of supermarkets now to your kid, but you want to still own a corner store. That's the kind of thing I'm talking about.
So you're talking about, wait, are you talking about from the owner's point of view to create a non-compete, or are you talking about, okay.
Yeah. Creating a non-compete that's not going to squeeze you out of being able to open up a corner store, because it's still a grocery store per se, but now your kids are running the grocery store chain that you owned. You want to make sure that there's wording in there
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't stop you. Like maybe you loved it and it was your life, and now you're like, I still want to stay in the grocery
Mm-hmm.
business. I just don't want to own all of that. I want a bodega. Like
I
I want a
see.
little
Okay. Yeah.
shop.
I guess before agreeing to a non-compete, that perhaps you're the buyer or the person you're transitioning to, whether it's key employees or your kids, may have already, or the lawyers probably put this in.
Yeah,
By the way, half the times it's the lawyers putting this stuff in.
Oh, for sure. Half the time the lawyer is putting it in, and sometimes even maybe your children
Yeah,
or you
it's like a
aren't aware
standard
exactly.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you're not aware of what all of the vernacular is
Yeah.
in that. So just make sure that you're protecting yourself, so that if you want to continue working in this industry that you're selling or you're giving away, that you can, that it's
Yeah.
not considered you being in
That's a good
direct
point, yeah.
competition, and then you're like, great, well, that's all I've ever known is groceries. Now what am I going to do? Like that's what I wanted to do, was open a little bodega or a flower shop, and now I'm in.
No,
so
that's a good point.
You're
Yeah.
going to create a massive issue otherwise.
You just got to be careful because, like I said, most of these agreements are all drawn up by lawyers, and lawyers do standard languages and they do standard clauses sometimes,
Mhm.
which may be overly extended,
Protective,
or whatnot. It's up to you to know what you want to be able to push back and change the language.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But-
that's a good point. Yeah.
But you also want to make sure that your kids, if your kids are taking it over, or your child is taking it over, or whomever it is that's taking it over, that they're going to be okay with it too, because in the end, they're buying that high level company.
Mhm.
Maybe they don't want you to be their competition. Maybe there's that too. Maybe they're like, no, sorry, Dad, you can't open a bodega. Sorry, Mom, forget about it. No corner store for you.
That's true. Yeah, that's
you,
true.
You can't do it. I'm not going to let you. It's going to interfere with my thoughts on growth.
Brand
and
and all that stuff. Yeah.
or where we're going to be locationally.
Fair enough.
So, okay, so let's say you've decided to do some internal assessment. As the great Charlene song goes, I've been to paradise, but I've never been to me. It's one of my favorite songs.
I have no idea what you're referencing, but okay.
Oh, it's the greatest song.
Okay, apparently I will need to Google this afterwards.
Paradise, but I've never been to me. Anyway, it came out in the early 80s. Anyway, invest in personal growth.
I shall Google this after the fact.
Yeah, all of you must.
YouTube it or something.
Charlene had the most beautiful voice, and she just didn't get very far from that song. Use this transitional period to expand your knowledge and skills. Get to know you. Get to know me. Attend workshops, seminars, pursue additional education to enhance your abilities, explore new opportunities, maybe take some painting classes, learn French. I don't know. Build a professional network. Connect with industry peers, entrepreneurs, and mentors who can offer guidance and support during your post-sale journey, kind of like a support group. They're basically going to become your business support group.
And they are out there. They have like groups just for post-exit entrepreneurs too. Yep. So
I suggest you start that now, so you're easing yourself into the second half of your career. And I also think that it would be great for you to glean advice from those who are already there, because they may say something that neither of us have said. Join relevant associations, attend conferences, engage in networking events. Know that selling a company can be mentally and emotionally draining. Make time for activities that promote your well-being, such as exercise, meditation, spending time with loved ones, and pursuing hobbies. Identify activities or causes that provide a sense of purpose beyond financial success. Engage in meaningful projects, contribute to your community, consider philanthropic endeavors, as I said before, volunteer where you can, reflect, and remember that everyone's journey after selling a company is unique. Take the time to plan thoughtfully, seek professional advice when needed, and remain open to new possibilities. So,
sounds like a struggle.
It is.
No matter if you're selling or you're just transitioning.
Yeah, I can't really speak. I can't really speak to selling a business, right? Because I've never done such a thing. But I do know that I want to eventually. I want to get out of this. I know that I would like to get out of this by the time my youngest is old enough to say yes or no to me. And that, my other two also by then will know what they want from their lives.
Mhm.
I hope they'll be in their 30s by then. Yeah. So, I have a sense of what I want to do
Mhm.
with my exit, but I don't know that I'm going to start planning that yet.
Mhm.
Um, what would you say was your after sale? Like,
Mhm.
what kind of feelings were you feeling after your sale? Even though you sold your company, it wasn't necessarily a secession or,
Yeah, I was traumatized. I was absolutely traumatized. The shock was a little much. So I prepared, right? And I thought I emotionally prepared. I thought I did the right thing. I thought I did my research. I thought I did the emotional preparedness as well as the financial, as well as the operational, right? But now, mind you, when I sold, it was a weird time. So I sold in March of 2020. In the middle of March of 2020, which means it's also the same month that immediately after the sale, the whole COVID thing went into effect. So all the shutdowns went into effect,
Mhm.
which made it that much more hard. And being in the accounting industry, finance industry, selling to a bigger accounting and finance industry, we went from the sale to a quick prep that, hey, everybody, welcome on board, everything. And we negotiated a great deal. Like everybody, my whole point of selling is I wanted to make sure that people who worked for me got taken care of. So we made sure that the negotiations included the fact that they would all be kind of offered the same position, the same, everything the same, so that they had an easier transition. But we went from 1 week of let's get on board, let's get people together to PPP. PPP rolled out.
Yep.
And I was really appreciative to have a big team to work with because that thing was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That thing was insane for anybody who worked in the accounting industry. And yeah, I'm not surprised they didn't quit after like a season of that because it was just absolute insanity. Everybody was stressed out. And so it was nice to work with the team on that, but it really like didn't give me a lot of time to really feel the post exit thing until much later.
Mm-hmm.
And then I feel like it kind of knocked me over the head with it. So if I had to do things over again, right, I would do what I'm doing now, which is I would diversify my business interests, meaning like don't like we were saying here right earlier on, which is like prepare for your post exit, like envision what you're
Mm-hmm.
going to be doing and be clear about what you want to do. So
Right.
let's say for example for me, I was clear about the fact that once I sell this business, my next step is I'm going to go start another one, right? I'm going to go do another business, I'm going to acquire one, whatever the case may be. The truth of the matter is what I should have done is I should have started doing that before the exit. Like I should have
Mm-hmm.
started doing that even maybe before I was ready to sell, or at least on the verge of selling, because I may have had kind of a side hustle that would have grown into a full hustle at some point, or something I could already be tinkering with and doing and kind of transition a little easier into that
Mm-hmm.
than going from having a full-time business to a acquisition and then staying on board with the acquisition and then leaving that company and then going, okay, now what? Right? It's terrible. I don't even know why I did that. I just did. And not only that, I felt all of it. I felt like after going, now what? The loss of identity, the was slight depression for sure. The loss of relationships because you don't have an excuse, you don't have a reason to reach out to people anymore because you don't have a business to actually reach out to people. Do like you're purposeless. Like I woke up and I was like, I mean, the first 3 days was great, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, up at like 6 a.m. as I normally am and going, oh, I have nothing to do today. Like there's no emails. Like that's the weirdest thing, the eeriness of it, is when you have no emails in your inbox. That's strange. Like that was really weird. I felt a little bit off kilter, like, okay. But I didn't have that for a while. And then after that, then I started getting like, antsy. And then I started cleaning the house, nothing else to do. Started cleaning the house and organizing everything. And then like, reading 20 books in a month and all this thing going, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? And eventually finding my way back. But I think it wouldn't have taken me the 6 to 8 months it took me to really find kind of my balance again if I was a little bit more proactive in the beginning and thought about this beforehand.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, but okay, and I kind of feel like our point counterpoint is bleeding into the raw truth.
Yes,
So,
it is.
and
As it always does.
and I'm okay with that. I feel like they're both to sometimes they do bleed into one another.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes they are our point counterpoints are a little gritty in the
Mm-hmm.
details. But Do you think that it would have been the same experience if this was not during COVID? Because I feel like all of us had a sense of what do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
Like I remember, the first month, I was like, great. My son and I were playing
Mm-hmm.
chess together and we were watching movies and we were doing a bunch of stuff. And like you said, the PPP rolled out and my life went from 0 to 100 real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like one of those roller coasters with a lot of the loop-de-loops. It was
Mm-hmm.
insane.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I had measured it as my tax season went from October of 2019
Mm-hmm.
to, I think, July or August of 2021,
Mm-hmm.
something like that. It was absolute insanity. But do you think that that feeling that you had would have been the same if the world were normal?
Yes, because I don't think I truly took a lot of time to visualize what my life would be like post exit to kind of know where to pour my energy into. I think it
Mm.
took a while spinning around trying to figure out where to put my energy. And I think I wasted a lot of time because I didn't know what I was going to do next, really. Like, I didn't really think about it. I think abstractly, I was kind of like, oh, yeah, I'm going to go either start or buy another business or something like that. But I could have and should have probably gone farther than that, thinking about, well, what is the type of business I want to get into and start doing some research. I mean, there were a lot of things I could have done to kind of help prep me that
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the only thing the COVID thing was would kick the can down the road a little bit longer.
Mm-hmm.
That's all it did. I don't think it would have changed the outcome of how I felt post exit
Mm.
because I simply didn't adequately prepare. And to be quite honest, I read a lot. I read a lot to prepare. I listened to podcasts, I listened to videos, I listened to other people's interview. And I will say for sure that not a lot of people tell you about the post exit
Yeah,
emotional
that's true.
preparedness that you should do. Like they don't talk about it enough because I think it's a sensitive topic.
Mm-hmm.
And now nobody wants to go around admitting the fact that they felt depressed or they had a loss of
Yeah.
identity or anything like that afterwards. So people don't talk about it enough, which is, guess what we're doing?
Talking about
Correcting
it.
that.
Well, yeah, you know what? You're right. I think that there is some level of ego involved, and which is why I think people don't talk about it. But it is important to talk about because it's kind of like when you find out that you have a free day, and then you spend most of the day trying to think of all the different things that you could be doing with that day, and then you're like, well. It's 3 o'clock now, so I guess I'll just, put my jammies on and make dinner. Or is that just me?
And
But
before you know it, all the days meld together.
yeah.
And like a month or 2 or 3 goes by, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, now I know why my grandmother kept saying, "What day is it again?" So anyway, I think that that's great. I think this is a wonderful thing for us to be talking about,
Yes.
and very important information. So, but in each episode, moving on, we like to connect a famous example of our discussion to help you relate our talking points on a more global or well-recognized scale. We're revealing the dots between the living room startup and the success story on the cover of Forbes. Sometimes we use exact examples of either famous persons or successful business owners of today or in history, and sometimes we use examples of people who inspire us and have inspired today's discussion.
So my example is Howard Schultz in Starbucks.
Ah.
So he struggled a little bit after he exited Starbucks in 2000. So he stepped down as CEO. And he has openly said, just kind of in various interviews and whatnot, the fact that he found it a little difficult to adjust to life outside of that company. I would imagine there was a lot to adjust to. He did quite a bit for Starbucks before he left.
Yes.
And then so after he left Starbucks, he definitely experienced a sense of restlessness and purposelessness. He felt disconnected from the business he had built and kind of lacked direction in his life. And so he did attempt to do things. So he attempted other ventures. He invested in companies. Heaven's sake, I'm sure he had more than enough to invest.
Uh-huh.
He also pursued like volunteer endeavors and whatnot, but he just struggled trying to find fulfillment and a new sense of purpose post Starbucks. Now, you've all heard about the boomerang kid, basically. Well, he kind of boomerang back. He's not the kid, obviously. The company's the kid, but he basically went back to Starbucks in 2008.
Which he's not the first one to do such a thing.
He isn't, right? There's a lot of entrepreneurs we've heard of that's gone back, but he did end up rejoining Starbucks as CEO in 2008, and he basically led the company through a period of significant challenge, which we can go down a whole road of that as well. And he said that part of the reason why he decided to join the company is his desire to capture the sense of purpose and connection that he felt missing in his post-CEO life.
Mhm.
So I guess in this case, he's also an executive, not so much a founder, but
Mhm.
it's still. I mean, I would say CEO. I can kind of get why it's similar
Mhm.
um, to that. So there you go. That being said, even doesn't matter what the windfall is. It doesn't matter what your exit look like. It doesn't matter how many dollars you choose. But that emotional attachment, that emotional preparedness is super important when you're exiting.
Billionaires need love too. on, our, on our last show, I discussed a successful example of a multi generational company that continues to be both successful and becomes more successful with each passing year. This time around, I want to discuss the underbelly of a generational succession and how, without the right kind of planning and the right conversation, it can go very, very wrong. I'm going to be reading this word for word from an article that I found and the link will be in our show notes, where there are a few other examples of companies that have been nearly decimated by a generational takeover. The events that surrounded the secession of Sumner Redstone for the controlling interest in Viacom has been described as resembling the Game of Thrones saga. Redstone owns 80% of National Amusements, Inc. and AI, which in turn owns both CBS Corp and Viacom. Viacom is a media conglomerate that controls Paramount Pictures, as well as a major U.S. cable stations such as MTV, BET, Comedy Central, just to name a few. With Sumner's daughter Sherry owning the other 20% of NAI, her eventual secession seemed like a mortal lock. Things changed around 2007 when Sumner and Sherry engaged in a public rift. Rather than naming Sherry as his successor, Redstone wrote in an open letter to Forbes. I can't believe he wrote this. All while my daughter talks of good governance, she apparently ignores the cardinal rule of good governance that the boards of the two public companies, Viacom and CBS, should select my successor.
Wow, a public letter.
Public letter.
Okay, well that should leave for some very interesting arguments at home.
Right? I mean, Thanksgiving and Christmas will be
Be a
so
little awkward.
awkward. Sumner and Sherry have appeared to have reconciled a decade later. In February 2016, Summer Redstone, longtime second in command Philippe Dauman, was named as his successor as chairman of Viacom and CBS. Sherry was the only board member to vote against his appointment. 3 months later, Sumner and Sherry teamed up to try to remove Dauman and his attorney George Abrams as board members of NAI. Sounds like a show. This prompted
There is a show.
There is a show, but I bet they didn't have as many quirky comebacks. This prompted a countersuit by Dauman, who claimed that the senior Redstone scheming daughter was manipulating him. 3 months after that, Dauman resigned his position. Sherry Redstone has been in and out of power behind the scenes, depending on the source. There have been on and off plans to reunite CBS and Viacom, but the battle for control of the company continues to this day, and the picture only gets murkier with each passing month. Now, this article was written back in 2018, so I did some research. And Sherry Redstone currently serves as the non executive chairwoman of Paramount Global, formerly known as Viacom CBS, and president of National Amusements. She's the former vice chairman of CBS Corporation and Viacom. Through National Amusements, Redstone and her family are majority owners of CBS, Comedy Central, BET, Showtime Networks, Nickelodeon, MTV, and Paramount Pictures. In 2020, Redstone was named on Time's list of the 100 most influential people in the world, and in 22 to Forbes' list of the world's 100 most powerful women. Both articles will be linked in our notes.
Wow, quite an empire.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there's a saying that goes, put your money where your mouth is, and we're drilling down a bit further here to connect what we've discussed at a granular level to tangible sources you can take to get you to the next level.
So my recommendation is really just in the form of advice. And what I did was kind of curate like a series of questions that probably been useful for me. I knew it back then. But I'll link it in the show notes just to save everybody from having to hear me ask the 8 or 9 questions that I put together. But it's a series of questions that kind of help you do some self-exploration and self-reflection if you are thinking about transitioning or exiting, just so that or rather selling or some kind of exit to your business eventually, just so that you can kind of get prepared and start thinking about a lot of stuff we've talked about just for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be in the show notes.
Okay. In my research, I found that Forbes has a list of their top 4 best books to read when selling or buying a business. I have to agree with their choices, and I think that this is a great article. So I'm going to also put the link of this article and in our show notes and speak to one of the books on their list. Although the book is a little old, to me, it's a little, the information is evergreen. Buying and Selling a Business, How You Can Win in the Business Quadrant by Garrett Sutton. After reading this on the Forbes list, I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this book. I've recommended this book to friends and family, and I think it's a great way to ease into the idea of life after the sale by preparing well for the sale itself.
Very
so
nice.
It takes basically what we said and expands on it on a much higher level. I like how Sutton uses real life stories on what to do in preparation for the sale, how to best select the person who will take over, who you should have in your corner for all the legalities and paperwork. The book's also great at explaining taxes, agreements, and contracts associated with the sale and how best to negotiate in your own best interest. We will have the link to purchase that in the show notes, and we'll be using our own Amazon
link.
That's it. For us, for you to be able to get directly to it.
Yeah.
So please join us for our next episode where we will discuss how to create value pricing. What does that mean? Is it beneficial for you? And what are the best steps to transition your pricing without upsetting your clientele? Please show us your support by following us on your preferred podcast platform, social media, and YouTube. We'd love for you to also share our episodes. All of our links are posted below. Until next time, mind the business behind your small business, because all great successes start small.